Thank you so much for tuning in to She's All Over the Place. I have an exciting, amazing, legendary guest for you today, Robert Sturman. Robert Sturman is a dear friend, a true artist, legendary soul, and seriously, he has taught me so much about language and my own soul and what it means to be a true artist. I feel in my life, out of all the people I've met, I feel Robert Sturman was really the number one most soulful artist I've ever met. When he came into my life and we crossed paths and we can share our journey of how we met, I was so moved by his way and his essence and his presence and the way he saw his lens in the world. So it's such an honor to have Robert Sturman on today. Robert, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be included with somebody who I'm a dear friend with.
Yeah.
And it's not just a professional thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we're going to deep dive for the viewer. Yeah, if you want to check it out on YouTube, just check out YouTube, Robert Sturman. She's All Over the Place podcast. And for the listener, you're in for an amazing ride. We're here to inspire you. We're going to deep dive on the psychology of what it means to be an artist and just, honor and share Robert's journey thus far. Robert's from California. And when you were born, Robert, like what happened? When did you know you were quote unquote different? Like what happened for you to be like, oh, I'm not like everyone? Or how was it for you to know I'm an artist?
That took a long time. It was definitely not when I was born. When I think it wasn't until I was around 14 that I decided, like I discovered sadness and insecurity and uncertainty, like the things that teenagers discover. And so I ended up going to boarding school when I was 14 years old. And when my father dropped me off, he gave me a camera. And I asked him what I was supposed to make pictures of. And he just answered, really not even thinking about it. He said, anything that you love. Now, after I heard that, I didn't make much of it, but later on it would have been turned out to have been the most important artistic advice I'd ever received. But to become an artist and to know that I was an artist, that took many years. It took many years and many graduations that had nothing to do with being educated at the academies and everything to do with exploring on my own and working through my own stuff and feeling a connection with the history of art. But I got to tell you, when I was coming up as an artist, I was very clumsy at it. I was a horrible photographer. I had to try so hard to get something that was decent. And once in a while, I would get something cool. And what I learned to do was to imitate it, copy it, until that luck that I got would eventually turn into skill. But I was not born with any of this. All I was born with was a desire to feel good in this world and to have a way to express myself, a deep desire, but zero skill.
Mm-hmm. And so back then, what kind of camera was it?
My first one was like a Pentax K1000, just the traditional kind that looks a lot like the ones professional photographers use, but they're digital. But this had film, which you put, I don't know who this audience is, but we used to put the film in cameras and go into a dark room to process it.
A lot of the viewers and the listeners who tune in, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, artists, a lot of
Right.
teens tune into my show as well.
I'm somewhat playing because
sorry.
Because it's such a new world of digital photography.
Oh, yeah. So, this thing called film. So it was film it was film that went into it. And so did it fit in your pocket for you to be able to take it to school? Like, did you film people or did you film like plants? What did you start taking photos of first?
trees, shadows, anything that I would hope would be something decent so I could pass the class and start to find a language with it and get comfortable with it. But then after I made a few that were somewhat cool that I was proud of, I started to identify with it. And I just got better and better at it. And I did a whole series of self-portraits
Mm.
in 10th grade. And that was a deep exploration into, I mean, just finding out who I was.
Mm.
And I think that's what happens. I think from 14 years old, from 30 years old was, I was a very cathartic artist.
Mm.
Like I needed to get stuff out and work stuff out. So I filled thousands of pages of sketchbooks, which I'm sure you remember when we first started becoming friends, that I was working on sketchbooks a lot.
Mm. Yeah, you did a portrait of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So that's what
totally.
I was doing.
And you were using the charcoal.
Charcoal, pencil, crayons, everything.
So it doesn't matter. So speaking of materials, so it doesn't matter if it's like high-end material or cheap material, like art is art, right? So you can take anything and
It
make it into
is.
art.
I mean, we're going to be talking about the Polaroids in a little bit, and those Polaroids will prove that, because those were only, I never paid more than $5 for one of those Polaroids. And those pictures, it's all coming from somebody's sincerity, from the
Mm-hmm,
heart. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we can deep dive into the Polaroid since you brought it up. I have one question though, because you mentioned the word language, and I know in the art community of painters, you know, a lot of art dealers, they're always like, "What's the language? What's the language of the artist?" So it's the first time I actually heard a photographer say the language of photography. So can you talk about maybe what is your language? What is your language? What does that identify mean for you now?
Well, first of all, I consider myself a painter, and who has the luxury of using a camera to be able to paint my pictures, tell my stories. And the camera is just tremendously faster at creating. And so I really identified with that. As far as language is concerned, to me, what it represents is what I see out in the world and what I'm going to put together and compose in order to say something. So, like for now, while I photograph yoga all over the world, I'm using this expressive bodily language, like
Mm.
arms reaching into the sky and heart back bending towards the clouds. And that's the language that I'm using to tell a story about humanity.
And from your Instagram, I see a lot of times, not a lot, but I've seen the divine femininity in your work and women who are pregnant. So, can you share a brushstroke of that, what it means for you and why you express those sincerities in the, you know, in Mother Nature of the divine femininity?
You know, what a great question, because that's one of the things that I like when I've thought before that, okay, I'm going to stop doing private shoots for a while. And then I, like, if I get tired, which only has happened a few times, I always come back to how much I love photographing a woman carrying a child, because there's, when you're in the, no matter how bad the world is, and we went through a pretty rough patch, hopefully we're out of it. No matter how bad the world is, a mother has to have hope. And so for me to be able to take a creative journey with a Madonna and child, really, which is an ancient theme in the history of art, it's like the greatest honor
Mm.
to be able to tell that story and to be able to celebrate that moment when they're just deep in the heart of creation. So
Hmm.
I I love it. That's the
Yeah.
greatest, one of the greatest honors to, as a photographer, is to do that. Yes.
I love what you just said because of that sincerity and that moment that you're talking about. I could just have the foresight of of those individuals who are women who are, carrying child, for them to frame it, for them to be able to look back to see that moment in time, like in that moment, or a year later, or 10 years later, like even, 4 decades later, for them to see that moment with the child in them. So yeah, and then you're able to capture that. It's gorgeous. I love it. Very
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
yeah. And so, for the listener and the viewer, Robert does travel internationally, and we can get into some of his international travels. So he mentioned he does, individual photo shoots, and I know a couple of times he's taught photography to some students. So definitely go to his website, robertsturmanstudio.com, and see when he's coming to your state or your area. And so you can sign up or email and be on his mailing list to sign up if you want to maybe have a private photo shoot with Robert. That could be really cool to meet him in person, and, in a group course or an individual shoot when he's available. Cool. Very cool. Nice. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, awesome. That's an open invitation for you. Cool. So going into the Polaroids that we were just talking about, first and foremost, I want to bridge the connection of the story you just shared with my yaya is from Greece, from Chios. And she, when I was full-time living in LA, she would come visit me for 2 weeks, a couple times out of the year. And one time it was her 50th year anniversary of being in America, from coming from the old country, and the image you have of Yaya and me in 2005 and her celebration is, I mean, we have beautiful photos and art we've created together, and that one specifically is just landmarks, a monumental time of Yaya being in America for 50 years. So I feel, for each individual Madonna, they feel, that same sacredness that I feel with that image with Yaya. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You
She's a
remember that
wonderful
shoot?
model. Of course I remember it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never forget any shoot.
Mm.
It's, and the fact that it's gone on living. Well, first of all, as a photographer, you relive everything because it's in the portfolios permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't put, that's one of the master files of you and
Mm.
Yaya. So
Mm-hmm.
I come across it every once in a while, and photography is miraculous in how it keeps people connected. Yaya might have remembered me once or twice, but because she sees the picture all the time, I'm always on her mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. She remembers you. And
Yeah.
so, I took some of the images from A Lover's Fairy Tale poetry book, and I put them on coffee mugs. I asked you if that was okay. I put
Yeah.
them on coffee mugs. So I ordered her one and I sent it to her. So she has that on her coffee mug every single morning.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us about Polaroids and how you got to the Polaroid and your journey, anything that comes up for you that you would like to share with us.
The Polaroid is something that I learned when I was 18, 19 years old, and I apprenticed to a master photographer in Carmel, California. And what this particular process is, which I did an extensive body of work with Kariaki, is that what you go by
Yeah.
professionally?
Mm-hmm,
Kariaki.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so it's an integration of painting and photography. And what I mean by that is it's an old Polaroid that they don't make anymore, this film, even though Polaroid came back, they don't make this film. So the picture would come out of the camera, and right away, I would have to warm it in the sun or on my skin, and then use tools. Mainly, I used a Bic pen cap, I'm sure you remember, or dental tools, and I would carve into the surface and accentuate the lines and the forms before they would solidify. So it was a wonderful moment because it was before the invention of Photoshop. So everything really had to be done with mindfulness and just carefully, because if you screwed one up, you'd have to throw it away. So
Mhm.
from the moment you made the photograph, the light had to be perfect. You remember we used to always shoot it either early in the morning or right when the sun was going down in order to capture the golden light and make this camera that was only $5 and it's made of plastic, make this film sing and dance by just getting it all in alignment with the elements. And then once that picture comes out of the camera, carving into the surface and accentuating the lines and the forms. No, I'll fix it later in Photoshop. This taught me how to pay attention.
Oh yeah, I remember the lighting had to be perfect. I remember we would do some, and you're like, okay, I think I got one, and you would look at it, and then you would get ecstatic. You're like, oh, this is it, this is it, and then you would go to work on it right away. It was like
Yes.
you would maybe do like 4 to 6 or 7 photos, and then you'd be like, okay, and you got it, and then you started working on it, and if I was lucky, it was very ambitious, and maybe we would create more than one, but usually it was one piece for each location. And how long was it? Decades? How long were you doing the Polaroid process?
From 1989 until 2009, 2008.
Hmm. I remember I was at your house in the living room, and you were in your dining room area. And I remember when you told me they discontinued the Polaroid.
Did you cry?
Um, I remember in that moment that I was with a legendary artist, and I'm like, oh, this is normally like Van Gogh, Picasso, anyone who's done amazing work, they're deceased. And you were so young, and I'm like, this is an artist who has this way, and it's so gorgeous. And I was there with you like nonstop. And you had to, I remember witnessing your process and your transition of having to reinvent yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
I remember that exact moment, feeling so lucky and honored that I was witnessing something so great.
Wow, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was very painful and scary at first,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
it transitioned quite well. And right when I let go of it, I definitely, like, people often ask me if I missed it, and there's nothing I miss about it. It was hard work. So
Mm-hmm.
when I trained, doing that, as I just said, took so much concentration and perfectionism that when I switched over to a digital camera, it was seriously like I'd been trying to run a marathon in high heels with the
Wow.
Polaroid,
Wow.
and then
Wedges,
somebody gave me a pair of Nikes.
wedges or stilettos?
Stilettos.
Oh, geez, torture, torture. I remember, I remember how hard you were on yourself to get it
Was?
exactly right. The
Yeah.
image, the art, that you were so particular and specific and
Yeah.
intently working. Um, and so do you find yourself, as evolution has gone on and we're more mindfulness, because you're very much into yoga, meditation, long before I met you, you were definitely, definitely a full-on yogi, and embodied, that whole spirit. Do you find your process, because like you said, doing the digital, um, what you said, how it was like a lighter load for you now, like less
Yeah.
painful. Do you find yourself not being as hard on yourself with your work? Are you still very exact, as an artist would be, but not as hard on yourself with it?
Well, I think maybe that there was a little bit of an exception because that was like, I mean, there was things would have to go in the trash if I got a perfect photograph and then I messed up the carving, and the photograph was a decisive moment where I couldn't reenact it. So it was a whole different thing. And I don't remember I'm sure I was hard on myself, but addressing that, I would say that I calmed down a lot as I grew up as an artist and was able to do more work. See, I think the greatest thing an artist can do is become a better human being and work
Mm.
on ourselves, because that comes through in the work. So I had to clear a lot of stuff out of myself so that I wasn't as much in the work. I could get out of the way. Like I said, it was more cathartic when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then I reached a point where I was an artist for I became an artist for life. I was way more I'm way more in service to life with my work, and I don't feel much anxiety or attention about anything creatively anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Even if it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity, I'm pretty relaxed about it.
Like the Grammys in 2005, like a life, was it 2005 or 2004?
Something like so, one of those years. Yes.
So that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You
Right.
were the official um, artist who designed the poster for the Grammys.
Right. That's
And
true. That it was once in a lifetime, but you're getting carried away, because where it was once in a lifetime experience to be honored by them, but I had already done the work. So I didn't have to do anything except for show up and have a great time and talk
oh,
about the work.
they just put the Grammy on the poster.
Well,
You
no,
that
they gave me, what happened was they asked me for, Music Cares asked me for a donation. They're a part of the Recording Academy Grammys that helps musicians that are in times of need. So I had just finished an extensive series celebrating the music of Cuba, and they took notice of that work and called me in to just talk to me and see what I was all about. And while I was talking to them, and to see if I'd make a donation to their Music Cares of artwork. And while I was in there, I looked at all the posters because they have them all framed and lined up in there. And I said, I want to make your poster. Their official artwork. It's more than a poster, it's the work that goes on everything, the tickets, the jackets, shirts, everything. It's all just the piece of the year. And up until then, it had always been very well-known artist. And I was just a young, up-and-coming, slightly arrogant at the time. And so because they wanted my donation, I believe they reluctantly gave me a Grammy and said, okay, go for it. And so that's when I made it. And it was something that I worked so hard. I wanted that. You know, I really, really wanted. And what I noticed is that all their official artworks were of the gramophone. And so basically I just not copied, but I just used my style. And my style was always about the musician. And that was important. I was like, well, what's the trophy's cool? Yeah. But it's the artist.
Yeah.
So I made the artist the main character. And I made sure they knew what I was doing, that like, this is what he won, but this is the artist. And I called the piece The Humble Heroics of the Musical Poet. And they chose it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love this story. Thank you for sharing. That's so cool. And then there was this signing downtown, and
Yeah.
you took me to it. It was so fun. The Blind Boys of Alabama were there. I became friends
Yeah.
with Joey Williams. He's the only one that's not blind. He's now the president of the Blind Boys
Yeah.
of Alabama. But he and I became friends, and we're like good friends to this day. We've done musical projects, but I met him because of you, because You as an
Yeah.
artist had a grand opportunity, and you had a +1, and you selected me to go with you and to honor me to be a part of your journey and your experience. And I was able to meet Joey Williams, and also Johnny Ho. He was partners with Jermaine Dupri for 15 years. He did all the mastering engineering for Mariah, Janet, Bow Wow, like Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, like legendary. And he lives in Atlanta, and he and I are good friends. Those are two great musicians that I met because of you, just being in your presence. That's the kind of a collective and energy you curate into your existence and being. So thank you so
That
much.
that's very kind of you. But wait, can we please take it a step further? I
Yeah.
think you left out Sting, Elton John, Hugh Hefner, Rob Thomas. I mean, everyone that night you went up to, and you were like the first person to ever do a selfie. I think I'd never seen anybody hold a camera and you would just go up to him and grab him, like, "Hey, Sting, Sting," and just put your arm around him. And every single one of them was just delighted because it wasn't the selfie revolution yet. You were the
You're right.
first one.
Thank you. And that was at the Music Cares event.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
year before.
Yeah. And oh
Before
God,
I got the gig.
Paul
When
Mc,
they gave me
right.
tickets to because I made the donation and was part of that charity.
Oh yeah, I mean Hugh Hefner. Legendary, right?
Yeah,
Seriously. Oh yeah,
you
that
went up to everyone. But I mean, the whole experience was great. But going back to what you're saying about the Blind Boys of Alabama, I mean, to this day, I still think about. I was in signing posters for probably hundreds of people. They all came to get this poster signed, and the fact that the Blind Boys were in line to get their posters signed by me, I that I to this day, that was the greatest thing I've ever experienced.
next time Joey Williams is in LA, I definitely have to connect the both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, for you guys to meet up and, you know, do your thing as artists. Okay, so I need to take it a step further then.
Okay.
I just thought of something. Yo, Janis
Yeah.
Joplin's mother
Yeah.
was in line to get your autograph, and I met Janis Joplin's mother who lived in
I didn't know
Texas.
that.
Yeah,
Really?
Janis Joplin's mother. I met her. She lives in Texas. I met her because of you. She was there.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I know. Well, I mean, you have thousands of people swarming around you, so you know, one Sharpie after another.
That was a beautiful moment, and I would have signed posters till for 100 days straight without a break. That's one thing. I was just thinking about that yesterday. That like the first time I was ever published in a newspaper, I remember waking up at 4:30 in the morning because there was an article coming out about me when I was 19, and just trying to chase down that newspaper truck to just get the first one. I was so excited. And I realized that I'm still, as an artist, none of that gets old. I am so excited just to have people interested in what I have to say, my work. So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
never changes. And if
Mm-hmm.
it changes, just smack me. Tell me I'm an arrogant idiot.
No, won't say that. Won't say that. We'll just take you to a desolate island so you can just have some isolation for a little while, some solitude to get a refresh, like a blank white canvas, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, you're an artist and you have your childlike spirit and energy, and it's what keeps us going, you know. It's just that excitement, that
Well,
curiosity.
but it's a privilege too, because you just mentioned living artist and Van Gogh, and a lot of my heroes in the history of art, they died before they could get any sort of recognition and appreciation of their work. And obviously these heroes are on a whole nother level than I am as far as their popularity is concerned. But still, for me, it's so sacred just to have an audience. It's you can never take that for granted.
Totally. Definitely, definitely. Speaking of heroes, some people you admire now, and along the way that taught you important lessons for your process and journey as an artist? I'm sure there's so many, but any that come up to you and you maybe want to share some gem stories, that would be really cool.
Oh boy, they're all going to just come at me in a minute. I mean, I'll start with just, there's a quote. Obviously, I do have stories. Yeah, here we go. There's so when I was 30, right before I met you, I I took a trip to India to do my first comprehensive body of work. And this was with the Polaroid. And when I was there, the first thing that happened was I started at in Pune, India, at Osho's meditation retreat center. And when I walked in, there was this very large sign, and it said the way of the creator. That's what it was called. And it said, to be creative means to be in love with life. You can only be creative if you love life so deeply that it's natural for you to offer a song here, a poem there, a dance over here. And so when I read that, like, I didn't need to go all the way to India to read that, but this is just how it happened. But when I read that, that was the missing link. That was what I was never given permission to do in the West, because in the West we're somewhat ideologically conditioned to believe that artists need to create out of struggle, out of desperation. And that statement was the missing link. It was giving me permission to take care of my life and make my life my art, my life a masterpiece, and that the work that I did was just an expression of that. It just was a natural, effortless expression rather than struggling and being self-destructive. And so that was the seed.
And being addicted to that destructiveness, right? There's an addiction, like you
Yeah,
said, being psychologically thinking you need to struggle to be an artist. Yeah.
all of it. That, I mean, you look at the
Mm-hmm.
statistics, so many artists die of overdoses and
Mm-hmm.
just lead lives of self-destruction because they don't know how to deal with the creativity and make use of the tools that we have available to us to be able to sit still in the fire and let existence burn through us but not get burned.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why you're here right now, to share and add value for the artists listening and for the artists watching. That's exactly why we do the work that we do, to share and expand through creativity and the love of, the wisdom. Because I mean, you are next level. Okay, since day one. Um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
So are you, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you. Many
Beyond.
Thank you. Many
Seriously,
blessings.
I could turn this podcast
No.
around and just talk about you. Seriously, I
Oh,
really could.
okay. So let's do that on
I
another
mean, let's
podcast.
just praise you for just like a minute. Okay, can we do that? We interrupt this podcast to praise the host for a moment. Okay.
Okay.
Seriously, you have so much, just the fact that your perseverance is tremendous. I've never seen you even consider giving up. And being an actor it has to be one of the hardest jobs there is, to go to audition after audition after audition and get kicked in the teeth, or who knows what happens there, but you never ever complain, and you kept on going back, and your spirit is so strong. And seriously, you look younger now than you did when I met you. What the hell?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
And
you.
and I don't know what you're
What the
like now,
heavens?
but what the heavens, what the heavens. That's right.
What the
I
heavens?
remember when we first met, I wasn't allowed to curse, and there were a lot of rules. And that's how we created that magnificent piece of art, the Virgin Mary, because that's who you were.
That was
I
the
don't know
first
what
one.
you're like now.
Well, it was our first one, and it was on
Yeah,
Melrose in front
it's
of
the
a
best
vintage
one too.
in front of a vintage store, in
Yeah,
front of a banana tree. It's a
with the
banana tree that we're in
flowers.
front of. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're wearing that yellow shawl, right?
I
Yellow.
oh, it was I had it handmade for me. It's
Yeah.
Vietnamese. 2 hours outside of LA, there's a Vietnamese town, a whole Vietnamese community, and I went and I designed it. I picked the color, and they tailored it to my body.
I think you should put that one on the show notes. That's such a special piece of art. It's so pure.
Well, I should have had it as the book cover. I did the other one that we did do that day. It's titled Innocence, but it's a close up of just my face and the flowers around. I did that for the book cover. But I contemplated having the Virgin Mary as the book cover. But it is in the book.
I love that you call it the Virgin Mary.
Yes. And thank you for your kind words. My
Oh,
heart
I
is
have a
just
lot more.
really open. My heart's very open right now.
Yeah.
I'm so thank you. I appreciate that. But let's do another podcast where you're gonna flip the script for a whole podcast. We can totally do that. But I wanna twist it back around if that's okay.
It's okay.
Okay,
Even though
okay.
I got all riled up, I've
Yeah.
got a whole list of stuff I could say about you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. But thank you for the a lot of water, hydration, and oh, what I really want to say about that thing that you mentioned about when I met you, like how I didn't swear and didn't allow cuss words because I've learned along my journey I'm an HSP, as I know you are an empath, a HSP, a highly sensitive person. 15 to
Yeah.
20% of the population are HSPs. So I feel, and I found out through my human design I'm a projector. Do you know what you are on your human design? Okay.
No.
I'm going to have you, there's 5. I'm going to send it. It's a
Oh,
free,
is that an enneagram?
it's not,
Enneagram?
it's not the Enneagram. It's the human
Okay.
design. And
Okay.
it's what it is, just so you know, on a psychological level, like, oh, I'm so emotional. You're not doing this, or you're so emotional. Oh, Katie's not doing this, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, and a lot of parents are having their children do it because like, why aren't they doing this? Because they're not designed. It's not their design. I'm a projector. So I'm the connector. I'm the projector. I see the vision on the macro level, and I have like a projector. So that's who I am. But along the journey since I've known you, I'm an HSP, so I'm a highly sensitive person. And there's toxicity. So there's like what you can, like, toxic chemicals in our environment. There, with our emissions, there's toxic things we can put into our body. There's physical toxins. There's narcissism. There's mental abuse, physical, like verbal toxins. So for me, I was so sensitive to the power of the word and the sound and what we vibrate and what comes out of our instrument, our
Yeah.
sound and our word. So I was really particular, of honoring you and our relationship and respecting who we are and our kinship when we planted a seed, that I didn't want to allow any of those things tainting our pure connection. That's why. So I'm not as
I
anal
think
as
it's
I
great.
was.
You
um,
know, since I've developed a very close relationship with an Amish family, and they, Uncle Rob, no cursing, okay? No
mm,
cursing and no replacement words, okay?
mm,
And I think you were all about the replacement words as well.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
Amish.
because it's our, like our main chakras and our vibes and what comes out of our mouth, and it's energy, emotion. And when I'm saying something, when the listener is tuning into us, it's going on to their aura, it's going into their soul, and it's transmuting, and it's going to shape shift their psychological process, their thought. So if we're over here, I mean, farting away and burping away and doing weird things, like, that's another podcast, like, and that's what they want because they choose to be there. But
Right.
that's not what's here. So I'm not gonna say I don't do that anymore. I hands down totally tell people all the time, like, I'm very aware of my sound environment. So lastly, like, on this topic, when, let's say, you're traveling internationally in New York City and you're in New York, and people are swearing and cursing and saying things, like there could be children around. Like someone's screaming a lot of times in New York City, screaming things out, like not aware of the humanity and society around them. I think it's just so like, like you said earlier, mindfulness. You've learned to be mindful in your work. You're a very mindful person, very compassionate, one of the most compassionate people I've ever known, one of the best listeners I've ever met in my whole entire life. You really listen. And when you listen so well that it's silent. There is silence. When I speak, everything is silent because you are really listening. Yeah. So
Thank
right
you.
now, see, silent. Yeah, totally. So circling back around on Polaroid. So I don't know if this is my little girl illusion, but this is a story I share and tell. This is what I remember from the planted seed from you. When you told me the news that the Polaroid was being discontinued, I remember you, I don't want to say frantically, but energetically moving and needing to go and buy up as many Polaroids as you could and put them in freezers so they could preserve. Is this correct?
I don't think I bought as many as I could, but I think you might have. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but I know Polaroid sent me a few cases,
Ooh, lucky
and
you.
and I did put. Yes, I did put. I didn't buy. I love the way that you.
Oh yeah.
Like I bought a massive, like 900-acre freezer. No, I put a couple cases in the freezer.
Okay, I'm going to take it a step further because my added story that I made up in my own
I
head.
love that story.
Oh yeah, I know. I have a boost for you.
Okay.
I have literally, from my fantasy and imagination of the extreme of it, of you being a living legend, having to um, find a new medium, that you went and bought up as many Polaroids as you could to put them in all the freezers that you could, including your parents.
I don't, I might have put one case in my parents, maybe.
Okay.
I don't remember though. But
Yeah.
I love the way you remember it.
Filling up all the freezers.
Look, history, it depends. It's written, whoever wrote it. So
Yeah.
I guess that's what happened.
Right. The extension of the vibe. So speaking of freezers, I know, with mental health and physical health and
That's so funny.
what a lot of people talk about. I know you got a freezer, and so
Yeah,
you do ice baths, and you're very keen on ice baths now.
that's true.
Yes.
About 2 years ago, I'd worked with photographing people that had experienced tremendous trauma, like police officers, firefighters, people in the military, were some of the people that I did projects with, and some of them became instructors, Wim Hof instructors, and what it is a practice of breath work and sitting in the cold ice, 28-degree water for like 2 minutes to 5 minutes to just rewire your central nervous system and to become more resilient and to increase your ability to experience more joy in your life. And when I heard Wim's, they tried to get me to go on the ice for a couple of years, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Why would I ever want to be cold like that? That's ridiculous. But then I heard Wim speak, and he was talking about how his wife committed suicide, and he went through tremendous hardship. And what saved him was he fell in love with the cold. He started swimming in ice ponds, and he really immersed himself into cold therapy. And I just thought, I don't feel like I can access the joy that I want to. And I always felt I was never like, didn't have clinical depression, but there was always a low level of sadness, which sadness is a very good thing to have if you know how to integrate it. But there was something that was a little out of balance, that I couldn't access the joy in the way that I knew was possible. And I not that there's anything against people doing um, antidepressants, or because they help a lot of people, but I never wanted to manipulate my hormone system, because I wanted to be able to access the depth of sadness, the agony and the ecstasy.
Me too.
So yeah, so I went and but if it's going to save your life, then please go. Yeah.
Completely, completely.
So then the next day after I heard Wim, I went and bought one of these flat chest freezers, and I'd never sat in ice. And that was about a little over 2 years ago. And I've been doing it when I'm at my home studio,
Hmm.
probably just about every day.
Brave. I
Like
love
I
that.
just got out a few minutes ago.
Beautiful, very refreshing. When I was in Vegas at Caesars, I always want to say Little Caesars, but Caesars Palace, the
Yeah,
spas there are amazing. But there's an ice bath in different spas I've been to. They always have like a little ice dunk where you
right.
can just go in and go dunk. And once you
The
go,
circuit,
huh?
the sauna, the ice
Yes,
bath, the
yes.
hot bath. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and when I'm there at the spas, I'll literally once you just boom 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 and you go in and you get to the neck, and I can sit there because it's mind over matter, and I can sit there for a long time, and it's so
yes,
good. It's
yeah.
so good. And I don't have an ice bath, and I don't think it's the same if I fill up my tub with ice bath. I don't feel it's the same. So for the listener and the viewer, if you don't have an ice bath, or if you can't jump in, check out your local communities. They have them where you can like do like a class pass or something now, or like a class pass app, or you can like check to just to pay like a one-time fee and like go and try and experience an ice bath. Also, HOF is HOF, so it's Wim WIMHOF. So you can
Yeah, there's a great video made by Vice, 40 minutes,
okay.
a documentary on him that will change the way you think about your body and what your potential is.
Okay, so I'll put it in the show notes. And
Okay.
also, for anyone's like, oh my God, 40 minutes, cool if you want to know Wim Hof. But also, I personally, a few times, I don't practice it as I would want to consistently, but I would love to put it in my calendar to do this. But there's a 10-minute Wim Hof. And if you just Google Wim Hof 10-minute on YouTube, I'll put it in the show notes as well. It's a 10-minute, and you get so deep in your breath that it's like it's invigorating. You get past like all of Dr. Joe Dispenza says we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of our thoughts are the same thoughts. You get so deep in your body and your breath that you move stuff on the inside, your organs, your energy, like your chakras. You align your central nervous system. So if you can't jump in an ice bath, you could definitely do the Wim Hof 10 minutes a day or whenever you want to. If you're feeling sadness or trauma, or just if you're homeostasis and feeling your equilibriums like balance, you can just do it just to raise the vibration and for your mental health, and share it with people who could possibly enjoy this with you, a partner, a family member, so yeah, cool vibes on that. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. Thank you. So shifting into, you mentioned trauma and police officers. When you um, needed to transition from Polaroid to reinventing yourself, share where you went next in your work.
What happened was, when Polaroid announced that they were going to go out of business, I had already done an extensive series pretty much in a lot of places in the world, from Cuba to Nepal, India, all over Europe, Mexico, and extensively through the United States. And when they announced that they were going out of business, I had just started to practice yoga, because it was at a time in my life where I decided that I wanted to heal some things and become more grounded. And I grew up in Los Angeles, so I'd always been around yoga and heard that these yoga people were very powerful and meditated and could just handle life in a graceful way. And so I decided that I wanted to try yoga right when all this was about to happen, because I knew that I needed to be strong. And I also knew that that was around the time when I was talking about giving up the struggle. So that was the beginning of my yoga journey. But then when I was doing it, and I looked around and I noticed that it was so beautiful. Like I could tell a story of humanity through these postures, through this heart-opening, reaching type of poetic, figurative poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So I volunteered for a magazine, a yoga magazine and they assigned me to a different teacher once a month, because I figured if I was around them, I would start to practice more yoga and I could evolve and strengthen who I am and become better at adapting to change.
Mm.
So I really immersed myself in that. And that's it. While I was doing it, I looked around and it was incredible. And I devoted the last few hundred rolls of film, maybe like 1,000 rolls, to the celebration of of yoga. And that was all done with Polaroid. But then when I was out and I didn't know what I was going to do, I mean, I figured I was going to get a camera, a digital camera, and go, but I didn't know, because I was also trained as a painter. So I really had no idea. But then I got a call from a warden in a prison in Central California. And this prison invited me to come and document their growing yoga program. And she had just heard about my work. And so I immediately went and bought a very inexpensive digital camera, which, like I said, it was like going from running a marathon in the stilettos to a pair of Nikes. So anyways, I went to the prison and I just documented this whole different, like the most extreme juxtaposition of what I had been doing, this idealistic vision of yogis by the sea, to all of a sudden working with human beings that are serving life sentences. And that would open up the doors to wanting to photograph the outliers of society. And everyone from firefighters to police officers to Maasai warriors at Mount Kilimanjaro to people at the Braille Institute, just anybody that was devoting themselves to this practice. I mean, they didn't have to do too much, but it was a story about human beings in pursuit of being better at being human, of healing, of wanting to get better at doing life. And that's what I saw through these gestures. And that took me all over the world. And so that was it. The transition, it just happened.
So how many prisons? Like hundreds? Like how many prisons?
No. Oh, I've been to San Quentin quite a few times in San Francisco area, and then a few different ones throughout California. And I've also been to a few in Mexico with Prison Yoga Project. And then I also went to one in Africa, in Nairobi, and worked with Africa Yoga Project and did a whole series in the prisons there.
Mm-hmm. And then visually, because I've seen your gorgeous creations. So you went from these, sand, ocean, Mother Nature, divine femininity, gorgeous, like graceful, colorful pieces to your work in the prisons. The color palette shifted, and there was prison bars and
Yeah.
how's that visually for you with the color palettes?
It was the greatest thing that could have ever happened, because the way when I first started photographing yoga in 2007 or 6 or so, right around then, 7, it was the yoga world was homogenous, and it was a box, and it was just this certain type of person that was on the covers of magazines. And so when I got to experience this, I made it I loved the bars and the tats and the whole everything, just everything about it. And because when I thought about it, and when people talk about the yoga world, how can you talk about the yoga world as an industry? It's not an industry world. It's the world. It's the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And the world does this for free. Meditation, yoga, whatever they're doing to awaken, to find stillness, to taking a moment, to realizing that it's important to take care of ourselves because we only have a certain amount of time here. And a lot of people want to do a good job while they're here. And that starts with working on ourselves. And I saw that with people all over the world, no different. And I saw that people that I was working with on the beaches, and they were going to be on the covers of magazines, they were no different than the people serving a life sentence, because really, ultimately, everybody that, I mean, you're a professional model, so when a photographer is paying attention to you, it's like, forget the camera. The camera means nothing. When someone is so excited that they're seeing your light, you can feel that. And the people in the prisons felt that. The person that was going to be on the cover of the magazine, because when I'm in my work and I'm holding that camera, I have one mission, and that is to see their light. And that's it. It's uncompromising. I know I'm going to get there. I don't know how I'm going to get there all the time, but I know I'm going to get there because I have so much desire. And when that camera's in my hand, that's all I want to do. And it gets me so high when I see it, when I just see it in them, and I start making these photographs where they're just incredible. It's glorious.
It's so beautiful, like what you just said, like your desire to go and meet a soul and find their light, like the discovery for you as an artist to find their light. And then when you on the search of their light, and then to discover their light, that's the best gift I think you could gift anyone in the world, right?
It is a good gift, and we actually all have that opportunity as photographers with our phones to pay attention to others and celebrate them through, making photographs of them.
Yeah. 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 Um,
Always, people want to be paid attention to. There's a story I want to tell you, okay?
oh, please.
So, and this really influenced my work a lot. So a long time ago, maybe it was 20 years ago or so, that I read this article in the New Yorker, and it was called Jumpers. And it was the history of all the people that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. And they interviewed all the people they could find that survived, and they all said they regretted it on the way down. And then they interviewed people that jumped twice and survived twice, and they regretted it both times on the way down. And then there was this young man in his 30s, and the coroner was called to this person's house. And when the coroner's called, you know what the coroner's there to do. And when he got to the house he was with the suicide assessment and some sort of psychiatrist on the suicide team. And when he walked in, there was a note, and it said, "I'm walking to the bridge. If one person smiles at me, I won't jump."
That's why they say a smile can change someone's day.
It can save a life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with the camera,
Wow.
it's an opportunity to pay attention to people so that they feel seen.
Yeah. to feel good. Yeah. Because people talk about ego, so it's okay to have a healthy ego. People are like, oh, Kill the ego. Like, like it's okay to have a healthy ego. I'm like, oh, I'm being photographed. It's not selfish. It's self-love. Like being photographed, someone's honoring me, seeing my light, as you said. And I love that. And, ever since I was a kid, when I'm walking down the street, I'm bopping around. Hi, how you doing? Hello.
Right.
I always do it. I just always have. And coming from my cross country background, like as an athletes, they have this, runners, they have this kind of etiquette where it's like, good job, good job. It's just kind of a thing that you do. But I think I always credited my cross country etiquette to doing that in life with people. But now I just remembered, deep down, I didn't know the reason why, but because of your story that you just shared, that's the deep reason why I do that, because I want to share the joy, because I definitely know the pain and the sorrow. And I know that we're all gifted this beautiful life, and it's an opportunity to be here and to always connect with people in their light. It's who I tend to, because I know I'm God's angels. We all are. But I know for me to connect with people, that's for me to connect with people, to share some of my energy and my light and say, hi, how are you? And you do that through your work. But that's an amazing, beautiful,
You do
impactful,
that through your life.
that's an important story.
You do that through your life.
Mm, yeah,
You do.
I do.
I
And
remember it the first time I met
yeah.
you.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Oh,
I remember it vividly.
let's talk
That,
about it. Because I definitely want to give my lens on it. Go ahead, please.
well, you were wearing, I believe, a Harley Davidson jacket.
Oh, white with yellow stripe. I got it in Ohio. Yo, it was bad. It was so awesome.
Where is it now?
Gone.
Why?
I think I took it to the dry cleaners and they ruined
Oh,
it.
okay, okay.
Like
It
horrible.
expired. Okay.
Like, yeah. Wow. I must have looked. Wow. Banging. It was like 2003. It was 2003,
Yeah.
2002 maybe. So I'll tell you, it was the year Jennifer Lopez wore Versace, and she wore that light green off the shoulder. One was sleeveless, one is a sleeve, and she showed up with Ben Affleck. And it was,
At the party I went to?
yeah, it was an Oscar event. It was for the Oscars. It was in the hills. It was in Mount Olympus, and it was the circular house when you're driving up Fairfax, and you see that circular house, and a tech guy lives there now, last I heard, because he's always having pool parties and stuff. And it was a place. During the day I was there, MTV hosted an event. Paris Hilton was there. She came out with these nipple things, these nipple covers, and she was there. You can see it in the Google. She was, I don't know if she came out with it. I think she did, or she was just wearing it because someone else promoted it. But she was wearing like this short little mini skirt, and she had these no top on and nipple covers, and they were like mermaid nipple covers. And that was, you weren't there. It was a day party. My cousin
Oh.
Dimitri flew in from
Yes,
Michigan.
Dimitri was there.
Yeah. He flew in from Michigan. He visited me. I took him to a day party there. It was a suite, and there was like 30 different, booths set up right next to it. We were getting all this swag. And MTV, they were hosting a thing, and Paris was there, and she was wearing these little no shirt, but nipple covers. And then we left and we got ready and we came back, and it was the night of the Oscars, and Jennifer Lopez was there, and she wore this Versace dress with, it's like I don't want to say lime green, but it's this beautiful like light green, one shoulder empty, off the shoulder, hair back, with Ben Affleck. There were like hundreds of people at this party, and this is massive. You could be anywhere in the house, anywhere on the property, upstairs, downstairs, wherever. He and I were hiding. We were having a private moment. We were hiding out of the spotlight, just us two. We were sitting down. I was honestly, between us, I was having some cannabis, and you walked this way. I was down, and for some reason, like, we just connected, and it was like a magical moment, and we connected, and that's how we met and became friends, right there in that moment.
Wow, I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember anyone being there. But I'm from LA, so maybe I don't even notice those things.
I mean, what do you mean? You remember people being there? Like
I
you
don't
were at a
remember
party.
Paris Hilton.
She wasn't there at the nighttime. I don't
But
think she
J
was
Lo
there.
and Ben
He was
Affleck,
there.
I
Oh
don't
yeah,
remember them.
they were there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll send you for the photos.
All right, I get it. Okay, that's
Oh,
funny.
mm,
Mary, wasn't Mary there from Trashy Lingerie?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, all right.
I don't know who that
That's how
is.
I was invited.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you were by yourself.
Nope, I was with a friend.
No, no, when you weren't with her, you were
Oh, right,
walking
right,
around,
right.
maybe going to find her, but you were lost at a party. You weren't with her. You were by
Okay.
yourself when you passed by, and you were just glowing. You had this energy about you. You're smiling. You had this big smile on your face. Yeah, yeah, yep. And then we were just inseparable after that. Yeah, we went on to being great, great dear friends, and we created a whole series together.
Time though, there was a time when it's not. Wait, how? It's been 20 years
No, because it's 2021,
more.
so almost. No, it's almost.
No, 20.
No, like 2023 would be 20. If we met in
Okay,
20, if we met
okay, okay,
2023 or 2024 will be 2 decades
okay.
because it was in 2005. I met you
You,
before then.
yeah, you have evolved so much. I
Mm,
mean, like I remember you were. I think you thought like you weren't into yoga or meditation or anything even remotely close to that. But then I didn't see you for a while, and you evolved into becoming so much more deeply immersed in healing,
mm,
and
mm.
that was amazing that you went in that direction
Thank you.
from
Thank you.
Hollywood to that.
So speaking of yoga, two things. You mentioned your journey. What kind of yoga did you start practicing?
As far as asana is concerned, I started just practicing. Gosh, it's so insignificant to me because
Okay,
there's so much more to
right.
yoga than that for me now. But hatha yoga
Love.
and vinyasa flow.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
just said it didn't matter what style I was practicing. I just really would be drawn to certain teachers, and I
Mm.
had one teacher in particular that taught me how to just create this emptiness, this like just take me through sequencing for an hour where you empty it all out and you burn through it, and then by the 60th minute of the practice, then there's 30 minutes where you sit on your mat and you do stretching and twisting and relax.
Like
I
yin. Oh,
no. This is
oh.
just this is after a vigorous practice. Then you take it to the mat and everything's pretty easy and gentle after that. But during those 30 minutes after the rigorous practice, I was so relaxed that I had so much clarity. And that's why I fell in love with yoga, because it gave me the clarity and courage to make choices from that place and
Mm.
problem solve. And so that's really why I fell in love with it, because
Mm-hmm.
it helped me evolve so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And you mentioned like what I was into, what I wasn't into, how I evolved. I would just like to share two of my favorite types of yoga. I love Tibetan meditation. I've always been connected to that form of deep meditation, and I love Kundalini. So when I started practicing Kundalini, I haven't shared this with you before. So actually, when I was doing things with Kundalini, things I was doing when I was 8 years old. I was doing when I was a child. I just didn't know it was called Kundalini. When I got
Right.
out of a hot shower, my parents raised us very independent. So I had my own space, my own bedroom, my own bathroom, my own everything. I was a definite privilege to have my own space, because I know with respect and boundaries of knocking on someone's door and having your own room and just allowing so much space, I always held a lot of space for myself in the world because I was given so much space as a child. But when I was a child, when I would come out of the hot shower, I had a practice that I did for 45 minutes. I would just sit with myself. I would just sit cross-legged and I would breathe. And I always, when my mind was just so alleviated from whatever was going on, because after like a hot shower, your mind opens, I was doing things like this,
Yeah.
like going like this. And then after it was empty, I would go the opposite way
Wow.
with my fists like this and my hands over my heart, and I would and I would go like this around my aura, and then I even like did this thing right here above my head, clear my
Yeah.
crown chakra, but I didn't know the language. I didn't know it was called crown chakra.
Right.
So I've
This
I've been doing it since I was a child. I was born into it. I just didn't know it was called kundalini.
natural born yogi.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, that's the thing is you didn't know, and then we get told things as we get older,
Yeah.
and then as we evolve and mature, and if we're lucky, we can forget all that and tap back into discovering it just by being in sync with nature, which is what happened to you when you were younger. That
Mm.
you basically invented Kundalini without it being, you just something instinctual, intuitive,
Yeah. Yeah.
discovered it.
I think because now I know the language of empath and I know the language of HSP, I just felt things that I couldn't explain to people. And I found a way to be able to dismantle and clear it so I could be afresh, right? Based on my own circumstances growing up in a big, wild Greek family.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So, what are you doing right now with your creations? Where is Robert Sturman in the world right now?
Right now, I am on a pause. I decided that before the pandemic hit, I was slowing down just because I wanted to evaluate the life I lived and what I've done, and work on some things in myself so I could catch up to the work that I've been doing, because I feel like my work is very evolved, and but me as a person needed to step more into that. The work leads the way, and I had been traveling hotels and rental cars and meeting people for this shoot and that shoot and doing so much busy, that I was carving out some time before the pandemic hit, because I wanted to take a year or 2 years to stop,
Mm,
just stop. And what I was telling you about with that, tapping into that intuitive intelligence,
hmm
I knew that I needed to be in one place
hmm
so that I could just breathe and do nothing, not read books, not, I mean, I've done all that, but everything is noise except for silence. So I knew that I needed time to really just rest and see what I've been about and see where I'm going, where I want to go. And I also wanted to spend some time with my father, who has been struggling with cancer for the last couple of years. And we believe it's healed now, but there's other complications. But I wanted to use, rather than being busy all the time, to work on my life and to also spend time with him and reflect back to him that his life has had tremendous meaning, and that his life he will live in me. But I just needed to slow down and develop a daily practice and discipline, and because I was all over the place, I went with the wind, and and which served me. I got a lot accomplished, met some incredible people, but I needed to kind of turn into a monk for a little bit. So I'm probably going to be publishing a book fairly soon, and I'm hoping that to be invited into museums at some point to fill them with dynamic exhibitions of humanity all around the world in pursuit of excellence and awakening. So, but I just needed time to cultivate that kind of confidence, that power, and good health too. And because when you busy like that and somewhat, it's hard to really take care of yourself when you travel a lot, unless you're really, really disciplined, which I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
working on it.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to just be a monk and take care of myself and develop a lot more self-respect and self-love and just sit still, you know,
Yeah, love.
swim in the ocean, be in the ice,
Oh, oh
relax.
my God, I need to swim in the ocean. I feel everything you're saying. It's so
Yeah,
wild. We've been on the same journey. I totally reflect and relate of what you're saying. Tony Robbins says it's like a blueprint. You have this blueprint and then you like live out the blueprint. And so I've dismantled stuff and now I'm like evaluating my blueprint, God willing, for the next 2 decades, right?
yeah,
So um,
yes.
yeah, I
We're going to
personally,
live long lives and we need to take care of
I
ourselves.
mean, people are what, 150, 170? I mean, people are going to go the distance here. We're on the way.
You sure are. Okay, okay, I interrupted you. You were going to say something?
Um,
You're going to say a
um,
million things probably.
it'll come.
Okay.
But yeah, one thing I want to share about the ocean in a moment, but yeah, your family values, reflecting, just being able, you were a sponge taking it all in. So it's like, okay, now you've taken it all in. You were a seeker, like very curious, going after it, up, down, and in between, and just allowing it to just be in the now, and and to celebrate all those ambitions, and to honor yourself and to reflect and have self-love and just, endow in your family and the commune of everything you've birthed, for your life and your career. You've been just birthing all these things, and great. I look forward to your book. People can get your work on your website, and that's so amazing. And we even like dabbled, and chatted before. You could be venturing into the new world of NFTs. So
That's true.
we might find the good grace to see your work on the blockchain in the near future, which is really cool. Um, Oh, something you mentioned about the ocean. I need to swim so bad, but I remember I was up for a TV show for it was called Noggin. It was the new Nickelodeon, but for like tweens, for like teenagers, the next level up, called Noggin. It was like the new network Noggin. I was up for a TV show and I needed to know how to surf, and I went out for it 7 times. They called me back 7 times. McNamara for the producers and everything. You took me out to Zuma. You took
Yeah.
me along. I bought a wetsuit. I bought booties. I bought gloves. You took me on your longboard surfing. You took me surfing. You brought your longboard. I mean, I couldn't get up. I could not stand up. It was so huge. I couldn't get past the break of the
Yeah.
ocean. Yeah, yeah. Oh my
So
God.
did you get the part?
Oh, no, they gave it to this other girl who was from Venice, and I found through the grapevine later on, they wish they would have went with me. She ended up being a drunk. She ended up being horrible on set, very depressive, not showing up on time, and blah blah blue, blah blah blah. But that's the
Yeah.
nature of the business. It happens. But it's wild because I said it's wailed. It's wild
It
because
is whale too.
it's wailed. You never, it's rare that you find out like why or what happened. Usually you just don't know unless you see the movie, you see who booked it.
Yeah.
But it was wild that it came back around. It was because I went out for it 7 times. And actually, my friend who did book it, Michael Copon, who's an actor, he did book it. And he's the one that told me that's because it was shooting in Hawaii. I was going to live in Hawaii. Like that's the dream, right? Living in Hawaii, shooting a TV show, like with like your friends. Like that was so cool. But I think Michael Copon is the one that shared the news because it's rare that things actually get back and that you find out unless you know someone. But yeah, that was amazing. I remember I had my first chai latte. We stopped at that Starbucks along the way, and you introduced me to a chai latte, and I was having them for years after. You turned me on to chai lattes. Thank you so much. Hot chai latte.
You still drink those?
I haven't in a while, but now because you just remembered, we just remembered and talked about it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm gonna go order one immediately.
Yeah, I haven't had one in years
Yeah, I know, but I remember when you stopped
because of
because
the
of
so much sugar.
I remember when you stopped, and that was why. Oh, so this is what I wanted to ask. Are you surfing still?
No, I just swim.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, swimming.
I think one day again I will surf. When I live somewhere closer to the beach with where it's just easily accessible, I'll get in again. But
Hmm.
right now it's just my dog and I go up the coast probably about 5 or 6 days a week, and I jump in the ocean and go for a little swim. That does it for me.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool.
Oh, by
Oh,
the way, my dog's name is Chai.
yeah. 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 Hey, Chai. Love you. Oh, two things. One, when you were speaking about Osho, you introduced me to Osho. I read a few of his books because of you. Thank you. I love Osho. Also, you turned me on to Khalil Gibran.
Khalil Gibran is one of the greatest
Khalil.
mystics. You know what? It's everyone says it and spells it differently, so it doesn't really matter. Khalil, you could say it however you want, but Khalil Gibran was just this extraordinary poet that spoke about the joy and the sorrow, a tear and a smile, the agony and the ecstasy, and that his writings has influenced my work more than any other writer artist. Period.
Yeah, yeah. You gifted me a book. You hand gifted me a book, and it's one of the most beautifulest books I've ever read in my whole entire life, The Prophet. And um over the holidays when before I was releasing my poetry book that we collaborated on,
Uh huh.
um I was reading like poems on love, and an expression of what you just said and what you were sharing earlier, the depths of the soul, and feeling it and tapping into the sadness and tapping into the thing, to feel that, to be able to transmute it and to put it into the words, to not self-inflict, to not let it sabotage, but to be able to use it. He says to understand the joyous of the joy of the joy, and to understand to understand the depths of the sorrow, to understand the depths of the sorrow, like you have to understand and feel the depths of the joy, and about being on one side of the bed. Like if you're on one side of the bed and everything's so grand and beautiful, you know what it's like to be on the other side. And when you're on the other side, you know it's only a matter of time or a day or whatever to know the other side, to understand both sides of the bed, and the joy of the high, and the depths of the sorrow. It's just so beautiful, so gorgeous. And I'm a poet, and you're a poet, and I'm so happy you turned me on to Osho and Khalil Gibran. And seriously, have you seen Dickinson yet?
Seen what?
Dickinson.
No.
Okay, you need to watch it immediately. I just marathoned it, 2 seasons.
Dick Dickinson, like
Emily
Emily Dickinson.
Emily Dickinson.
Oh, there's a series out
Oh,
based on her life.
it is so funny
Wow.
and so cool. I've been writing poetry nonstop, and I understand my voice as an artist and as a poet more, and understanding solitude and not having to explain myself. Earlier, you're saying give myself permission, allow that, and discovery as a journey as an artist. Um, like it's very rare. Like I'm close to people, but someone who's like, really close, that can really affect you emotionally, like the Titanic, right? So to not explain oneself and to understand my language and my space that I need without explaining it and just owning it like an oak tree. Dickinson, you
Beautiful.
immediately need to watch it. So I want to honor you and your time and your space, because we've been going, and I love you, and we could be here all day. To hone it in and wrap it up, I just want to communicate a couple things. One, I know you've been all over around the world, but where's one or two places that are just like that pop out, that are just like, oh my God, this was magnificent.
Oof. I think two places that really pop out are the Himalayas, so through Nepal and northern India, north of Rishikesh and into Nepal. Just something about it. It's just, there's this timeless feeling of just, it's the top of the world. So I loved that area. It's the area approaching Tibet. And also Mount Kilimanjaro, another top of the world,
Mm,
in Africa. So
mm.
those two are definitely just, I felt something
Mm.
old, very, very old and
Yeah.
connected. Yeah. How
That's
about
how
you?
that's how I felt when I was in India. When I was going to Europe many, many times in my life, and I thought, oh, this is old country, old history, London, Paris. But when I went
Yeah.
to India, I felt something ancient there.
Right.
Ancient in India.
Right.
Well, one place that really knocks me off. I mean, I'm Greek and I love the Greek islands. So I just, if you're going to go to Greece, you need to go for a month. And I highly suggest flying straight into Mykonos, not into Athens, because Athens isn't really Athens. It's 2.5 hours away from the Parthenon. So I suggest getting a one-way ticket to straight to Mykonos. Travel to the islands. We island hop 7 different islands one summer, a couple summers ago, and then end the trip if you've never been to the Parthenon. And I felt it was my civil duty to take my partner with me to the Parthenon, even though I already went there so many times to see it. But on the way out, do it after you've relaxed, after you've traveled the islands.
Right. Right.
Do Athens at the end of the leg and fly out from that quote unquote Athens airport. So I would have to say that. Um, but going to the Golden Temple was pretty magnificent. That was really cool. The Waghi border, I went to the sacred changing of the guards at sundown, and I touched the point of where India and Pakistan meet, and I actually have photographs with the horses and the Pakistani soldiers. I'm like, we're taking photos together. It was so cool. It was, and I was on the side of India, and it's just a barbed wire. It's just barbed wire that separates the land. Um, you know. So another lightning round question I have for you. Where is somewhere in the world that you haven't been that you really want to go to?
Well, just after hearing you speak about hopping around those seven islands, I'll go there. That sounds good.
Okay.
That would be awesome. But I feel like extreme places like Patagonia, deep down the tip of South America, that whole area, all through South America, especially because I could speak Spanish too. That would be quite fascinating.
Ooh.
That, and I mean, I'm looking at a map of the world right now, and there's so many places I'd love to just take trains through China. I'd love to go to Alaska, uh, New Zealand. There's just, and I don't think I'm going to get to all those places because it's so, it's not important enough to put that much energy because I do love, as I said, staying still. So there's going to be a few more big trips, but I definitely long for some of the colder places now that
Mm.
I've acclimated myself to cold a little more. I think
Mm.
Alaska would be incredible.
I went to Alaska. I ran a
You
marathon
did?
out. When I was 19, I won Miss Michigan Teen Motor City, and to represent my documentational leadership ability, I raised $4,500 in Michigan. Went with 112 people from Michigan, and I ran a marathon with the program Team and Train, and we ran partly up Mount McKinley,
Wow.
26.2 miles. So what I was going to say to you is, with nature and the
Yeah.
mountains and drinking the fresh water from the waterfalls, you will love Alaska. So your first place, I definitely highly suggest Alaska for you.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so wild that Alaska seems so exotic and far, but it's in America. You know? It's like Hawaii. Alaska seems like its own thing, but it's 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 in the US.
Well, it's way up there above Canada.
It's not the US?
It is the United States, but
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah. I knew that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, oh, and it was really cool going to sleep, and it was like bright light. I was there. I was there. I ran the
You were there in
marathon
June,
on,
July, June.
yeah. So what happened was when I was running the marathon, the locals were like, and they couldn't stand it. I was like, cool. I was great. I had no problem, with, the air. But it was difficult for the people, who were locals. Um, um, but yeah, at nighttime when we were camping in the woods with the big trees, and just it was so light, when you were going to sleep. But it was really cool, like walking around the town in Anchorage, and you see these fishermen, and you see these picnic table, wooden desk with these fish that are just like 10 feet long, like massive. They're so big and thick, and that's what they need to catch, or the locals come and they get the fresh fish and pay, and that's what they take home to their families to eat. I mean, that's how they're, eating meals. The first time I was in Alaska, the first time I had halibut, and that's when I fell in love with halibut. Fresh, amazing. But then halibut was going extinct, so they actually didn't have it at certain restaurants in Beverly Hills. For a certain time, they weren't serving Chilean sea bass. Yeah. Do you remember when that happened?
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there's a movie for you to see called Seaspiracy.
Oh, I heard about it. Okay, I'll
I
watch it.
think you'll enjoy it.
I'll watch it tonight. Thank you
Okay.
for sharing that with me. Yeah. Okay, lastly, wrapping it in here, for fellow humans, artists, whether, it's a child, someone on their discovery path of just being an artist, what are some wise words, wisdoms, I mean, everything you've been saying is just a wise word and gem. So, anything additional you would like to share with fellow artists? Uh,
Yes. Know what your dreams are and stick to your dreams and don't be swayed by the dream of the world.
mm, love that.
Never give up. Never, ever, ever give up your dream because there's going to be a lot of opportunities to get in your head and think that the world does not care about what you have to say. That's why your dream is the most important dream.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I love that. And never give up that dream because it's yours and no one else has it. And no one knows what's going on in here and in here, in our heart and our minds and our souls. No one knows. Like I don't know your visions and what you want, your dreams, right? And what's an idea, a tool or tips or something for people to um discover their dreams? Maybe if they're confused, maybe along the way they've it's been tainted. If they don't, how do you get in touch with self to find the dream of the dreams within, if maybe someone's on a struggling path to know that, what that might be?
Doing more and more things that help you respect yourself, self-care, self-love, and listening, not, trying to refrain from committing crimes against your own wisdom, which means like whether it's alcohol or whatever it is that you're doing that is keeping you from accessing your intelligence, then I would start to do your best to let go of some of those things so you can hear yourself speak and see your dream clearly.
I love that.
Whether it's meditation, yoga, running, whatever it is, just sitting still, but not filling every moment with being busy with Netflix and texting and Instagram. You have to be intimate with yourself. You have to.
Empty it out, empty it out.
Yeah.
I love that. What comes to me also is journaling. Journaling is really cool, right?
Yeah.
Dancing, even just dancing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dancing. Absolutely.
Following the joy, the
And have
spirit.
ritual.
Love
It's a
that.
daily practice. Doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah.
but it happens.
Hmm. I honor you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. And uh, I honestly can probably say this is my best podcast yet.
No.
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the connection. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
having me. I mean, these are my favorite ones, is where I have a history with the person and the
Mm.
connection. So thank you.
My
Really. I'm really honored.
my pleasure. I'm so lucky because I've been able to witness your journey.
That's exactly how I feel about you. And you've grown up so much. So much.
But with my language and wisdom, not by my physical looks,
Your
right?
wisdom, no, you got younger. I don't know what the excuse me, what the heavens happened to you.
My friend Jeff Carrillo, he says I'm the fountain of youth.
You are.
My birthday's 11/11.
You are the fountain of youth.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah. You're amazing. So, okay. Oh, the works you mentioned of your favorite places, Nepal. Can people find those pieces of your work on your website now?
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah. If you do just go through the website and experience it, you'll go to a lot of places in the world. Absolutely.
RobertSturmanStudio.com. It's in the show notes. Follow Robert on Instagram, all social media platforms. Robert Sturman. Just Google him. You'll find him. Say hello. Support him. Be a part of his journey. Reach out to him if you have any questions. He's very open, loving, and compassionate. So, just definitely reach out to Robert. And yeah, thank you for spending time with us, and we honor you and your time and you holding space to be here so we can learn and grow together. Cool.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Katie.
Awesome. So I must ask, so I would love to have you back on She's All Over the Place. So would you it would be an honor if you would come back in the near future and have another chat.
Of course I would.
Yay.
Anything for you.
Yay. Awesome. I love.
Anything with you. With you. I'd be honored.
Yes.
But I'm going
Perfect.
to turn the tables a lot more.
Oh,
Because
we should do that.
seriously, I was a podcaster for a while. I don't know if you knew that. And I had a podcast. And
What?
a few years ago, yes, I was a host. And I have to tell you, it's one of the harder things that I ever had to do, and I never quite got good at it. It's a muscle, and you hold space because you have to pay attention, and you have to really pay attention, but also be flowing and preparing your questions as you're paying attention. And then there was the editing, and it was way too much for me. So I applaud you, because to be a great podcaster, you have to be interested. You have to be more concerned with being interested than interesting.
Yeah.
Which is a great quality to have. And I can do that as a photographer, but it was just too much. I did 25, and I interviewed all the extraordinary people that I worked with that were kind of the outliers of the yoga world. And people that you would never expect. Like, I even brought my podcast gear into prisons. But I know it was one of the harder things. So I applaud you for holding space for people like that. It's a great gift, and you're superb at it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I wanted to start my podcast 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't know how to get on the train tracks. Thank God I'm like full steam ahead. Choo choo. So are the episodes still up if people wanted to check them out?
I took them all down. It was like,
Aw.
yeah, it was nothing about being ashamed or anything. It was just a moment in time. And it was like the Tibetans, how they build the mandala sand paintings and then they destroy them.
Mm.
Um, that's how my podcast career was.
Wow. But do you still have the episodes?
Yeah, I have them on my hard drive.
Dope. You could always
Yeah,
like, republish them later or something
I
like that.
could. I
Yeah, yeah.
could.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's important having a team and having the support because it is definitely a lot of
Team.
energy for one
Yes.
person to do. So,
Oh yeah.
yep, yep. Awesome. So, on that note, we have really been all over the place, and I appreciate you. You're a rock star, a living legend, and everyone just, like I said, just the call to action is to get in tune with Robert, follow his journey, and, let's just become friends and stay connected. And until next time, actually, we'll just check in with you next week. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. We love you. Mwah.